Now in today's video, I am going to show you how I make these wonderful, precious little sparrows. They're so much fun. They're so cute. They make a wonderful ornament. You can use them in any kind of art installation you have. They make great little soft fabric sculptures. I have these on little sticks so that when I hang them, they look quite unique, and it gives it more of a realistic kind of a view to it, a nice natural touch, if you will. But really, there's a lot of different ways you can apply these little sparrows. Really, a lot of it is just where your imagination takes you, quite frankly. But for this video, I will show you how to make the sparrows, and then what you do with them after that is entirely up to you. But let me give a warm welcome to all my Weaving Wyrd siblings. For those of you who aren't in the know, my name is Sig. I'm a retired tattoo artist turned active fiber artist and crocheter. And here on my channel, you and I get to create a little magic with every knot. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. This doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me provide you with regular tutorials featuring original designs, classic patterns, and lacy motifs. I'm always interested in your feedback, so feel free to leave your comments or questions below. For today's video, I'm going to need 3 different colorways of yarn. The first colorway is going to be a basic mold or variegated or some sort of colorway that has some interest to it, if you like, or it can just be a straight single color as well. I like the extra interest because I feel it gives the piece a little more interest. But you'll want that in sock yarn, and it's not hard to find that in sock yarn. And then you'll want a white or a creamy color yarn, at least a light colored yarn, depending on what your color palette looks like. And then you'll want a black yarn. Now, the type of yarn isn't all that important. So for example, this is a completely wool, I think there might be some polyamide in there, blend, your basic sock yarn. It's unbranded, so I couldn't tell you who makes or who made this sock yarn because I purchased these yarns from basically a thrift store. And so I don't have any other information on them other than what I can glean about, or rather from my own observation and experience with yarn. So this is clearly your standard sock yarn. It's a wool and possibly polyamide or nylon blend. This yarn right here is your basic acrylic yarn, or at least that's what it feels like to me. It doesn't feel like it has any natural fiber at all in it, but it is the right weight of yarn. And then, of course, the black yarn. Now, the black yarn feels like it could definitely be a blend as well. A natural fiber blended with probably a polyamide or a nylon fiber. So for this project, really, your yarn only needs to be a 2 weight. So my black yarn and basically my blue yarn here, they are a solid 2 weight. My lighter color yarn is a light 2. It's not quite a 1, but it's a light 2. So they're basically in the same family. It's a mixing and a matching. If you prefer to use a different weight of yarn, just make sure that you use the appropriate size hook, and make sure that all the 3 yarns that you are using, the 3 different colorways, are basically the same weight. Now for the 2 weight yarn, I am going to be using a size 5 or a 3mm hook. I am going to use 2 different needles. I have a basic sewing needle right here. It's very small, it's very slim. And then I have a standard smallish size yarn needle. Next, I need a stitch marker. And of course, I will need stuffing. Now, these things are things that you're going to definitely need for this project. I'm going to go through a few other things that are optional, depending on how you choose to complete or finish off your sparrow. So first, I have a couple of glass 6mm beads. They're black, obviously. They have a nice shine. And these are what I am using for the eyes in my project. Now, you may decide to use safety eyes. You may decide to embroider your eyes, and that's perfectly good and well. I have chosen beads. And because I have chosen beads, I am using, it's basically a very strong cotton hand quilting thread in black, of course. And then that's what my little tiny needle is for. That is because the eye is going to fit through the holes of these beads. And so that's something to definitely keep in mind. If you are using beads for your eyes, you're going to want to use either a beading needle or a very small sewing or embroidery needle that allows the eye of that needle to fit through the center of the bead. Other options you may consider are some sort of cording or ribbon that you might find appropriate in terms of turning your sparrow into an ornament, whether it's an ornament for a tree or a child's mobile or any other sort of art installation you might be interested in using that requires one of these sparrows to possibly need some sort of a hanging piece to it. And then last but not least, other options you may consider, and some of these options are options that I'm actually going to use myself in this piece, are branches to give your sparrow a little bit of a perch. And I have a couple of different examples here. So one is kind of this holiday branch piece that you might use in a holiday motif. And then this is just your standard branch that just about anyone can find taking a walk around their neighborhood. Now, before we get started, I'd just like to make a quick little note that for this project, my merled blue sock yarn, I'm going to refer to as color A. My black yarn, I'm going to refer to as color B. And then my cream or white color yarn, I'm going to refer to as color C. So using color A, I'm going to go ahead and make an adjustable ring. Some of you may know an adjustable ring by the name magic ring or magic circle. And then I'm going to go ahead and single crochet 6. Now, because this is a sculpture or an amigurumi, I'm going to use a yarn under technique unless otherwise stated when making my single crochets. So for those of you who don't understand exactly what it is I mean, if I were going to make a normal single crochet, I would yarn over, I would pull my loop up, and then I would yarn over again and then pull my loop through, creating a single crochet. But because I want a tighter fabric, I'm going to use a yarn under technique, and it goes like this. So I'm going to, like with a regular single crochet, I'm going to insert my hook, and instead of going over, I'm going to bring that yarn under, and I'm going to pull that loop up. And then instead of going over, I'm going to then hook my yarn under that and pull that yarn through. So that's yarn under technique, and I'm going to do that 5 more times. 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more makes a total of 6 single crochets, yarn under. Now, as I said before, unless I otherwise specify that it's a yarn over or a traditional single crochet, I'm going to continue using 8 yarn under technique. Now, the next thing that you might notice a little difference on is the join. Now, my join is going to be a little different than usual. It's going to be kind of similar to what you might expect to do when changing colors. So normally I would start off like this. I have my 6 single crochets and I've made a complete single crochet on my last stitch on that round. Or rather I should say, and so normally what I would do is I would slip stitch into that very first single crochet on the round and then pull my slip stitch all the way through, and then I would chain and begin my next round, having made and completed a join. I'm going to do the joins a little different. And as I started saying a little before, is it's going to be very similar to when changing colors. So when changing a color, on that very last stitch that you're making your transition from one color to the next, or in this case, from the end of one round to the join, I'm only going to work to the very last step of that last stitch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to then insert my hook into the first stitch of this round. I'm going to get my yarn and I'm going to pull that yarn all the way through. So I'm going to treat it similar to a slip stitch, but I'm going to actually just pull it all the way through. So I'll show that to you again. So I've almost completed the last stitch on my round. So instead of pulling that through, I'm simply going to stop right here. And then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into the very first stitch of my round. I'm going to pick up my yarn, still using a yarn under technique, and I'm going to pull that loop through, and instead of stopping, I'm going to continue to pull it through the other 2 loops that are already on my hook in slip stitch fashion. And what that does is that sets me up for my second round. So I should have 6 single crochets or 6 stitches for round 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'm going to begin round 2. And for my first single crochet in round 2, I'm not going to chain. I'm simply going to do something that's called basically stacking. There might be another name for it, but I know it is stacking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hook. I'm going to insert it into that same stitch. I'm going to pull my yarn through, and that sets me up for my very first single crochet in that second round. And what this is going to do is this is going to hide that seam quite nicely. So now that we've gone through it, I might mention it a couple of times as we go along, but this is pretty much what I'm doing and how I'm going to progress going further. So if you need to rewind the video back to review what it was I'm doing because it may be a little confusing or you may have forgotten what it was that I did, absolutely, please do that. Otherwise, what I'm doing is going to be just a given. And if you have a way of joining your work or you don't mind the seams, by all means, do what you do. But this is what I'm going to do for this pattern. So for round 2, I want to increase 6 times. So that's going to basically be 2 single crochets in each of the 6 stitches. So this stitch right here, this very first stitch of round 2 already has 1 single crochet, and so I'm going to insert my hook into the same stitch, and I'm going to make my second single crochet, and then I'm going to increase in the next 5 stitches, leaving me with a total of 12 single crochets or single stitches at the end of round 2. And then 6 increases, which will leave me with a total of 12 stitches. And with this being the last stitch for round 2, I'm not going to complete it because I'm going to move into my join. There you be, round 2 is completed. Now I'm going to move into round 3, and for round 3, I'm going to do an increase 2 times and then a single crochet. And I'm going to repeat that pattern 4 times. So I'm going to begin with my first increase, my second increase, and then my single crochet. And I'm going to do that 3 more times. Increase, increase, and single crochet. And do it 2 more times. And 20. Next, I'm going to make my join. And so insert my hook, pull my loop through that very first stitch of round 3 and continue to pull that loop through the last 2 loops on my hook. And now I've completed round 3. I'm going to move on to round 4. And for round 4, simply going to be a single crochet in each stitch. So at the end of round 4, I will have 20 stitches on my round. 1, 2, and 20. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my join. And now I'm going to begin with round 5. And for round 5, we're going to actually pull in color B. And we're going to start making some changes. And I'm going to work with both color A and color B for the next few rounds. So I'm going to begin by making a single crochet 5 times in color A. So that would be my first one, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is where I'm going to make my color change. And just a quick reminder for those of you who neither need a refresher or may not know, when making a color change, you just work your last stitch of the previous color to the last step of that stitch. And then you work in your new color. You use your new color to finish off the last step of the previous stitch. Now next I want to single crochet 10 times. So 1 and 10. I'm going to bring in my color A. Make that change. And then I'm going to single crochet 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And much like a tapestry stitch, I'm just going to work our colors in underneath the stitches that we're working. So we'll just put that in there and make sure that you work any loose color into the stitches that you're working. Okay, so my 5th stitch, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my join. And that's the completion of round 5. So I've completed round 5 and I've made my join. I'll have a total of 20 stitches in this round, and I'm now ready to start round 6. And for round 6, I want to start off with making 4 single crochets. So I'm going to single crochet 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and then my fourth stitch. And I'm going to change to color B. Now for color B, I want to single crochet 6. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now it gets a little fiddly when you're dealing with different yarns, but for this one, you're not going to have more than 2 yarns at a time on your piece, so it'll be okay, I promise. Once I've made my 6 single crochets, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 3. So now that I've got my chain 3 completed, I'm going to, in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to slip stitch. And then in the next chain, I'm going to slip stitch again. I know it's a little hard to see with this black yarn. And then I am going to single crochet into that stitch. And that's the beginning, or rather the top part of the beak. Next, I'm going to single crochet 5 more times using color B. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next, I'm going to change colors back to A. And then I'm going to single crochet 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my join. Let's see, I work it that way. And now I've completed round 6. Now for round 7, I want to go ahead and make 3 single crochets. So that's going to be 1, 2, and 3 in my color A. And then I'm going to switch over to my color B. And I'm going to single crochet 7. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. And then in the second chain from my hook, I'm going to slip stitch once, and then in the next stitch, I'm going to make another slip stitch. What I want to do next, after I've made my 2 slip stitches, I want to swing around over here to the very next stitch. and make my single crochet. I'm going to pull that top part of the beak out of the way. And so basically what I've got now is, I think you can see kind of two little pointy parts. And that will address here in just a moment. So I've made my single crochet into the next single crochet, and then I want to single crochet 6 more times. So it's going to be 1, 5, and 6. And that leaves me with 3 more single crochets after I switch over to my color A. So 1, 2, and 3. So your piece should look something like this right now. And now is a good time. I'm going to have you fasten off color B, but leave yourself a nice long tail because we're going to weave color B in a specific way. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the needle to my yarn. And I'm going to weave my yarn, and it doesn't matter which direction you go, but I'm going to weave my yarn sort of a little bit in the back stitches, and I'm going to carry it back to the beak. And then this is where I'm going to shape my beak. So I'm going to use the yarn to just sew the 2 levels of my beak together. So basically I'm going to sandwich them together. And I'm not going to pull too hard, but I am going to use this time to shape my beak. Now I am using a bit of a whip stitch here because I like the fact that it gives my beak just a little more chunkiness. I don't want a lot. I just want a little more definition for that beak. And it doesn't take much because your beak is going to fill out quite nicely, quite quickly. Okay, and that's all I need to do. Now, what you do want to be careful about is weaving into this last row of stitches because you're going to be using those stitches. You still want to be able to get your hook through them. So let me go ahead and just trim off that little extra bit of tail there. And you can see that I have my little beak formed. All right, so the rest of this can just be put into the head. It's just extra yarn, extra tail, so why not use it with the stuffing, because we'll be stuffing it here pretty soon, so that's okay. So now that we have the head pretty much finished or taking shape at this point, if you're using safety eyes, this is a really good time for you to put those in now. Otherwise, if you're using beads like I am, it's better for me to wait until the head is stuffed and pretty much the body is closed up and all that good stuff, because then I can just go back and I can sew the beads where I want them to be and take that time to do any shaping of the head I think I might want to do while I have a needle and thread to the beads for the eyes. So now I have my color C ready to go, because I'll be working with color A and color C for a bit of time now. So now we're ready to start round 8. And for round 8 with my color A, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet 4. So I'm going to start with my first single crochet. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And now I'm going to work in my next color C. Next, I'm going to single crochet 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're at the single crochet where we be on just this side of the beak, and in that stitch I'm going to increase. So 1 and then 2. So that gives me a total of 7 single crochet stitches. And then I'm going to swing just under the beak into the very next single crochet. And that might get a little tricky because you have to kind of finagle it around the beak and get it into that single crochet, because we're going to kind of close up that little gap here. And so that'll be that single crochet just like that. And then another one in that same stitch. So basically it's an increase in that very next single crochet. And then I'm going to continue on with a single crochet 5 more times. So 1. So now that I've completed my 5th stitch in color C, which gives me a total of 14 stitches in color C, I'm going to switch back over to color A. And then I'm going to single crochet 4 times. So now that I've completed my 4 single crochets in color A, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my join. And now we're ready to begin round 9. So far your piece should look something like this. So for the first stitch of round 9, I want to decrease. So again, I'm going to, in my very same first stitch, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull through a loop. And then in the next one, I'm going to pull through a loop. And then I'm going to take that loop I just pulled through, and I'm just going to continue on through, and that's my decrease. It's a little different than what many of you might have seen in the past. So if you're not comfortable with this particular decrease, you can do any decrease that works for you. But this is the decrease I'm doing on this particular project. It's another variation on an invisible decrease. So I've done the one decrease. So now the next thing I want to do is another decrease. But this decrease is going to be yet a little more different because I'm also going to change colors with this decrease. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into the next stitch, and I'm going to pull that yarn through. And then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert it into the stitch after that. And this time I'm going to pick up the new color or color C with my hook. And I'm going to continue to pull that all the way through. And now I'm ready to work with my new color. Next, I'm going to single crochet in the next stitch. And then I'm going to decrease 6 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we got 6. I'm going to single crochet, and then I'm going to change colors back to my color A. And then with color A, I'm going to decrease 2 times. So 1, and then 2. And then I'm going to get myself set up. Oops. Okay. And then I'm going to set myself up to complete round 9, make my join. And now is a good time to stuff my head before I move on to round 10. So now I want to start off my first stitch of round 10 as an increase. So that'll be 1 and 2 single crochets in the same stitch for my increase. And then in the next stitch, I want to make another increase. But now also I'm switching colors at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and change my color into the color C. And once I've changed colors, I'm going to increase in the next 8 stitches. So 1, and then 8. Or you can look at it as another way and say 16. That'll be additional 16 stitches. And then go ahead and switch colors back to color A. And make an increase 2 times. So it'll be an increase in the next stitch, and then an increase in the last stitch of the round. And then I'm going to join. And now we're ready to begin round 11. So before we move on to round 11, your piece should look something like this so far. Now for round 11, I'm going to begin with a single crochet in the first stitch. Then the next stitch is going to be an increase. Now, as you can see, I am using yarn A. And the next stitch after that, a single crochet. and then the stitch after that, an increase. And this is where I'm going to change colors to color C. Now for color C, I'm going to follow this same pattern, but I'm going to follow it 8 times. So a single crochet, and the next stitch an increase. A single crochet, and then an increase. Now, once I have completed my 24 stitches in color C, I'm going to switch back to color A. And then I'm going to pick up the same pattern again, a single crochet, and then an increase. And then one more time, a single crochet, and then an increase. And that brings me back to the end of round 11. So just to quickly recap, because I'm not sure if I told you what your stitch count was supposed to be. So for round 11, your stitch count is supposed to be 36. And now for round 12, we're basically going to single crochet in each stitch. So I'm first going to, in color A, single crochet 6. And then in color C, I'm going to single crochet 24. And then when we come back around again to the other side, I'm going to pick up my color A again and single crochet 6. So 1. Now that I got 6, I'm going to switch over to my color C, and I'm going to single crochet 24. Next, I'm going to change color, and I'm going to finish off by making a single crochet 6 times. So far, you should have something that looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join, and then I'm going to start round 13. And round 13 is just a basic repeat of round 12. So again, 6 in the color A, 24 in the color C, and then 6 again in color A, single crochets. So now that round 13 is completed, still have 36 total stitches. Your piece should look something like this. Now I'm going to move on to round 14, and this is where we're going to start doing some decreasing. So first I'm going to single crochet 2. So 1, 2, and then I'm going to decrease. Then I'm going to single crochet 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to decrease, but because I'm coming back into color C area, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pick up my color C and pull that through. So I've got my 2 single crochets, and then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make my decrease. Now I'm going to continue to use color C until I've reached the last color C stitch in the round, and then at that time I will change color again. But I'll continue with the same pattern. So again, single crochet once, single crochet twice, and then a decrease. So now that I've joined, and I've completed round 14. I have 27 stitches on this round. I'm going to move on to round 15. Now, round 15 is going to be single crochets. And all the single crochets are just going to line up with their respective colors. So this is color A and color A, and then I'm going to switch to color C. I'm going to start making my single crochets for color C. And 17. Next, I'm going to switch back over to color A. And I'm going to single crochet the remainder of the stitches. So that's 27 for round 15. Next, I'm going to follow the pattern of single crochet 3 and then a decrease, single crochet 3 and then a decrease, and then as before, I'm basically going to just correspond the same yarn color with the previous stitch that it's corresponding with. So I'll begin my round 16 with a single crochet in color A. I'm going to do that second time and then a third time. And then I'm going to decrease. And with this decrease, I'm actually switching colors because I'm going to be changing over to my color C. And so I'm just going to pick that one up as my last step and pull that through. And then I'm going to begin again. So 3 single crochets, 1, 2, and then 3. And then a decrease. And then again, 3 single crochets. And then a decrease. And then continue that until I've completed round 16. So once you've completed the pattern of a single crochet 3 times plus a decrease until you have only 2 stitches left for round 16, you're going to go ahead and just single crochet in each one of those stitches for a total of 22 stitches for round 16. So next I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to join, and then we will get started with round 17. Now for round 17, everything's just going to be a single crochet. So I'm going to begin with 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to change to color C. I'm going to do color C 14 times. And then we're going to switch back to color A to do that 4 more times. And so again, 1, and 14. And then of course we're going to switch to color A. And I'm going to single crochet my last 4 for round 17. And then I'm going to join. And that moves me on to round 8. For rounds 18 through 20, repeat round 17. Now, once you've completed round 20 and made your join, it's a good time to stuff the body, or at least start getting the body stuffed before we start decreasing again. Now that you've got it mostly stuffed, I'm going to go ahead and do round 21. Now for round 21, I'm going to, of course, start off with color A. And I'm going to single crochet 4 in color A. Then I'm going to change to color C. And in color C, I'm going to decrease 7 times. And then I'm going to finish the round off with 4 more single crochets in color A. Now moving on to round 22. Now again, I'm going to single crochet 4 in color A. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I'm going to switch colors to C. And then I'm going to make a single crochet. And then I'm going to decrease 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to switch back over to A. And I'm going to single crochet 4. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and get that joined. Now this is a time when we're going to go ahead and finish stuffing the body as much as we deem necessary, or as much as you deem necessary, or as much as I want my body to be stuffed. This is a good time to do that. This is also the time I'm going to cut myself a nice bit of tail so next we're just going to simply weave in the tail, and weaving in the tail is just as simple as just pulling it up and just working it into the body itself. Just so that we kind of hide that. Okay, so now we're moving on to closing up the body and making the tail. And you might need to fiddle with this a little bit to get everything kind of, straightened out in the way that you want it, in terms of how you want your bird to be sitting and the orientation of his body. Because sometimes things get a little twisted while you're crocheting, and I think you know that. So, sometimes it's just a little fiddling and you'll get it. So next I'm going to want to slip stitch 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now that I've got my slip stitch, what I want to do next is I want to go ahead and pinch this shut, and then I want 6 single crochets along the base of my work. So basically, the front side of the bird and the back side of the bird are going to be stitched together with a line of 6 single crochets. So I got 1 and 2, my 6th one right here. So now that I've chained 1, I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to single crochet, standard yarn over, single crochet in that very first stitch, in the same stitch. In the next stitch, I'm going to make a double crochet. There again, traditional crochet stitches, yarn over. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to place a treble crochet. And then in the stitch after that, a treble crochet. And then in the next stitch, a double crochet. And then the stitch after that, a single crochet. And then I'm going to fasten this off, and I'm going to switch to my color B. Your piece should look something like this. And then for the black, I'm just going to go back over here with the back part of your bird facing you. And I'm just going to slip my hook right there into the top of that very first single crochet. I'm going to tie in, and then I'm going to just make a single crochet in that first stitch, and then a half double crochet 4 times. And then 1 more single crochet. And then I'm going to fasten off the black, and my tail will have been completed. So let's get started on the wings. Firstly, just to give you a heads up, rounds 1 through 4 are going to be the same for wing 1 and wing 2, rather the right wing and then the left wing. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set up both wings with rounds 1 through 4, and then from there we're going to move on to how to finish the right wing and then how to finish the left wing. So to begin, for rounds 1 through 4, I'm going to go ahead and make an adjustable ring. I'm also going to make standard single crochet. So it's going to be a standard yarn over single crochet. And I'm going to single crochet 6 single crochets in my ring. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Make my ring tight. And that'll be the finish of round 1. Now, for the wings, I'm going to work in a spiral. So I'm going to go right into my round 2, and each stitch I'm going to increase. So that'll be 1 increase, 2 increases. I'm going to do an increase 6 times, so that will leave me with 12 stitches for round 2. Okay, so now that I've completed round 2, I'm going to move on to round 3. And for round 3, I'm going to follow the pattern of an increase and then a single crochet. And I'm going to make an increase and a single crochet 6 times, and that'll leave me with 18 stitches on my round. So I'll begin with my increase. And then in the next stitch is going to be my single crochet. I'm going to do that 5 more times. Increase, and then a single crochet. I'm going to do this 4 more times now. Now that I've completed round 3 and I have 18 stitch hook, for round 4, I'm going to do things a little differently. And I'm going to start using a stitch marker. So for round 4, my first stitch is going to be a half double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and use my stitch marker right there. Now, if you needed to use a stitch marker before this, absolutely please do. I don't use a stitch marker too often, so sometimes I forget to put it in for, for the people who are just learning and feel they need to use a stitch marker more often. Next stitch is going to be a double crochet. And then in my next stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet. And then I'm also going to place a treble crochet into that same stitch. And then the stitch after that, I'm going to place a treble crochet. And then in that same stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet. Next, I'm going to place a double crochet in the stitch after that. And then in the stitch after that, a half double crochet. Then after the half double crochet, I'm going to single crochet twice. So once and then twice. And then I'm going to start a pattern. And the pattern is going to be 2 single crochets plus an increase. 2 single crochets plus an increase. I'm going to do this 2 single crochets plus an increase 3 times. So 2 single crochets and then my increase. Again, 2 single crochets and then my increase. And then one more time, 2 single crochets, then an increase. And then I'm going to finish up round 4 with 1 more single crochet. And that brings me back around to begin round 5. Now from here, I'm going to move on to the right wing. So 1 through 4 is how we're going to begin both wings. And then there's that deviation between the right wing and the left wing. So here we're going to just move forward and do the right wing. I'm going to remove my stitch marker for a second. And then what I want to do is I want to single crochet 4 times, but after my first single crochet for round 5, I'm going to replace my stitch marker just so I don't lose my place. And then that'll be 2, 3, and 4. So the 4 single crochets take me right back here to the tip of this teardropped shape that we just created up to round 4. Next, I'm going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And then I'm going to single crochet 5 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the next thing I want to do is in the next stitch, I want to place a slip stitch. And then in the stitch after that, I want to place another slip stitch. Then I want to turn my work. Next, I'm going to single crochet in the back loop only the last single crochet I made. And then I'm going to single crochet 5 more times, back loop only. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next, I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to turn my work. And then I'm going to single crochet in the back loop of my next single crochet. And then I'm going to do that 5 more times. So I'll have a total of 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now next, I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch again in the stitch after that. I'm going to turn my work. And then starting with the last single crochet that I made, I'm going to begin making single crochets in the back loop only. And then after that, I'm going to do it 4 more times, giving me a total of 5. So I just make 2 single crochets, 3, 4, and 5. Next, I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn my work. And I'm going to single crochet 5 again using back loop only. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch. And I'm going to slip stitch in the stitch after that. And I'm going to turn my work. And beginning in the last single crochet that I made, working back loop only, I'm going to single crochet 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to single crochet 4 in the back loop only again. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And then at this point in the next stitch, I am going to slip stitch, and I'm going to fasten off. So the right wing should look something like this so far. So now I'm going to switch over to the black. I'm going to start right here at the tip of the very first finger of the feather, where we had previously made the chain 7. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tie that in. And then I'm going to chain 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to make a treble into that same stitch. Then in the next point of the next feather, I am going to make a double crochet, 1 and 2. And then again in the next one, the next tip of the next feather, I'm going to make another double crochet. And then in my 4th point, the next feather, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to make a double crochet. And then also in that same stitch, I'm going to make a single crochet. So my piece looks something like this so far. So that's the black tips of your feathers. Next, I'm going to single crochet 18. So 1, 2, 3. Next, I'm going to remove my stitch marker. I'm going to make a slip stitch right into that next stitch. And this is where I'm going to fasten off. I'm going to weave in my ends, and my first wing is completed. The right wing is now completed. So let's go ahead and I will show you how to do the left wing. Now for the left wing, I have completed rounds 1 through 4. My stitch marker is where I will begin round 5. And for my left wing, things are going to be just a little different because we're kind of working in reverse, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet 1. I'm going to put my stitch marker right back there at the beginning of round 5. And then right here, I'm going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then beginning with the second chain from my hook, I'm going to single crochet 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the stitch after that. I'm going to turn my work. And then beginning in the last single crochet that I made, I'm going to single crochet 4, working in the back loop only. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I want to chain 2. I'm going to turn my work. Next, the second chain from the hook, I'm going to make a single crochet. And then in the next 4 single crochets, back loop only, I'm going to work 4 more single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Next, I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch. And then the stitch after that, I'm going to make another slip stitch. And then I'm going to turn my work. Now, beginning in the last single crochet that I made, I'm going to start making my single crochets, back loop only, and I'm going to make 5 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to place a single crochet in the second chain from my hook. And then I'm going to single crochet in each of the next single crochets. So I'm going to single crochet 5, working in the back loop only. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Next, I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch in the stitch after that. I'm going to turn my work. And then beginning with the last single crochet that I made and working in the back loops only, I'm going to single crochet 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then this is where I fasten off the blue, or rather color A, for my left wing. So you should have something that looks like this so far. So now for color B, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to count back from the last single crochet that I made. I'm going to count back 10. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then I'm going to tie into the next stitch my color B. And then next I'm going to single crochet 20. So 1, 2, 3, 19, and 20. Now next, in the same stitch, I want to place a double crochet. And in my next point, I want to place another double crochet. And then in the point after that, I want to place another double crochet. Now in my last point, I want to place a treble crochet. Then I want to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then in that same stitch, I'm going to fasten off and then weave in my ends. And so now I have my left wing. So now using pins to place your wings, or maybe you don't need to, maybe you just hold on to it with your finger. It really depends on how you work this. And then using your black and your blue yarn, go ahead and just sew your wings in place. And you can kind of see the placement here where that black lays. And then once you have your wings sewn where you want them to be sewn, you have your options, right? So for this one, I'm going to give it a perch, and I've got the wood, or rather the branch that I would like to use on this. And then I'm going to decide how I want this branch to sit. And then I'm going to decide about where I'd like to see it sit. So now I'd like mine to sit right about here. And I'm just going to simply sew my yarn around, kind of whip stitch style. And then just a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, to hold my bird to his branch. So now your sparrow is finished. If you chose to put a hanger on it, if not, you can simply use it as a sculpture piece. There's lots of different things and variations you can apply this lovely little sparrow to. And if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and check out my other playlists for more tutorials that are similar to this one. So until we meet again, stay creative, stay amazing, and always weave your own Wyrd. Bye-bye now. Have a wonderful weekend.